My husband, our kids, and I lived in an apartment. One evening, he and I had stayed up watching TV. It had gotten pretty late, so we decided to give up and go to bed. We got dressed for bed and went into the bedroom to lay down. He was always really fast to go to sleep, but I, on the other hand, have always taken forever to settle down and drift off. We had been in bed about 15 minutes. He was already sound asleep, and I was on my 9,000th sheep when the bed moved a little. It felt like someone kicked it. Not necessarily violently, but hard enough. Then out of nowhere, the bed started to shake, violently. Like, jumping up and down off the floor, breaking one of the legs in the process. I jumped up out of the bed, and he was sitting up, confused as hell. He said, "What the f*** was that?" I said, "I don't know." We were both really freaked out by it, but 2 minutes later, he was back to sleep, and 2 days later, I was still awake. Some time later, because this was the bigger of the 2 bedrooms, we moved the 3 kids into this room, and we took the smaller bedroom. They hadn't been in this room for very long before our oldest started to play with someone unseen in the middle of the night. But those are whole other stories in and of themselves. My husband, myself, and our kids lived in a ground floor apartment at this time. Our bedroom was on the very end of the building, and the only window faced the parking lot. There was a security light, about 30 feet from that part of the building, and it always shined into our bedroom at night. One night we were laying in bed, and I noticed something at the window. I lay there and watched for a little while. Once I woke all the way, I realized it was the silhouette of a fairly large person. Just standing there. I didn't know if they were facing the window, or if they had their back turned to it. I didn't know if they were trying to hide from the police, though they were doing a poor job of it. I didn't have a clue what they were doing. But, what I did know was that, just to the side of them, was the window to the kids' bedroom, and I wasn't having none of those shenanigans. I jumped up out of bed, stepped over to the window, watching the person stand there the entire time, and I yanked the curtain back. There was no one there. Nothing. At all. I stood there shocked for a minute, and waited for someone to step around the corner to face me, or to do anything at all really. But nothing else ever happened that night. One day, one of my friends and myself had gone to visit my mother. She lives about 35 miles from me. We had all decided to go to town for some reason or other, so we all piled into my mother's car. We backed out of the driveway and headed down the road. We had managed to get no more than a block from her house when her phone started to ring. We all heard it loud and clear. Her ringtone at the time was one that had a silly voice, and when you had an incoming call it said, "Ring. Ring, ring." Then yelled, "Ring," like a maniac. It was pretty loud, and you really couldn't miss it when her phone would ring. We got to the stop sign at the end of her block, and she started to look through her purse for the phone. She looked up at me, and of course I was watching her dig around. She raised her eyebrows, and said, "I left my phone at the house." We all laughed and went on to town. I was laying in bed, sound asleep, one morning around 6:45. Suddenly there started really loud banging at the front door. I thought the cops were looking for someone. So I got up and went to answer the door. When I opened the door, there was no one there. No one was on the balcony, in the breezeway, in the yard, nowhere. But they were still beating on the door as I jerked it open. I shut the door and started to get dressed for the day since I was up. A couple minutes later my phone rang. It was my partner. We had a paranormal investigation team together. She told me that she was just in a fight with a girl that we were both working with. She said things got pretty heated, and they were on the verge of putting hands on each other. I said, "Oh really? Well, your rage was beating on my door." It happened at the same exact time. If you have a true, scary story, and would like to hear it on this channel, please submit it to SinisterFido@gmail.com.